A very quick disclaimer before we start. This video was suggested by one of my patrons. If you have a suggestion for a future episode, you can fill out the form in the description. Anyways, let's get into it. Located at the crossroads of 3 continents, Arabia was a hub for trade between Africa, Asia, and Europe. While the Mediterranean Sea connected the latter 3, the Red Sea was a barrier between Arabia and the rest of Africa. Consequently, a land-based trade network had to be developed, and so caravans were formed, connecting Arabia with India, Persia, and Rome. Caravans are essentially just trading companies. But because the word caravan refers more to the group of merchants traveling together than their organization, there is some confusion about whether or not the Arab caravans were actually companies. Because they were independent traders working together for safety, they weren't technically a company. But because they operated like one, sharing resources and coordinating logistics, they sort of were a company. So whatever, let's just call them trading companies. The Arab trading companies first emerged during the 2nd century BCE, connecting the Arabian Peninsula with India and Persia. The most common goods being traded were spices, incense, myrrh, and ivory from India and Persia, and textiles and precious metals from Arabia. But what the heck were they using for currency? Well, initially they used precious metals such as gold and silver. But soon they began using standardized weights of them instead of actual coins. For example, one of the most common weights was the miskel, which was worth 40 grams of gold. Eventually, these weights became so popular that they were used all over the Middle East and even in Central Asia. But wait a minute, how did these Arab trading companies manage to reach India and Persia in the first place? Didn't they originate in Arabia? Yes. But around the 1st century CE, they started expanding northward into Mesopotamia and Syria. By the 2nd century, they reached Egypt, and by the 3rd century, they were in control of the entire Mediterranean coast. Through this expansion, they came into contact with the Romans, who became their biggest clients, buying up most of the goods the Arabs had to offer. So you're probably wondering where the goods from India and Persia were going. After all, if the Romans were buying up everything else, then those regions must have been supplying someone else, right? Well, not exactly. See, despite the fact that the Arabs were in control of the Mediterranean coast of Arabia, they didn't actually have any direct contact with India or Persia. They relied on local middlemen to get them the goods they wanted, but those middlemen had middlemen of their own further east. And so the Arab trading companies only ever saw a small fraction of the goods produced in India and Persia. Most of the goods they saw were luxuries, things like spices, incense, and precious metals. But occasionally they would see rarer items like ivory, apes, and even peacocks. Speaking of peacocks, they were usually pretty easy to spot as most of the people working for the Arab trading companies were non-Arabs. Due to the nomadic lifestyle of the Arabs, they didn't really have a merchant class. Consequently, they had to import merchants from outside Arabia. These merchants tended to come from the Levant region, which is why most of the goods imported into Arabia via the Indian Ocean trade were actually resold to the Romans. As for the goods produced in Arabia, well, most of it was exported to India and Persia. Textiles, precious metals, glass and coral were the main exports. But like the imports, occasionally rarer items would appear, such as the fabled Arabian horses. Now, while this entire system worked pretty well, it wasn't without its issues. There were occasional conflicts between the Arab tribes and the local rulers of the areas where the trading companies would stop on their way to the sea. Furthermore, the further east the trading companies reached, the more difficult it became to transport goods across the mountains. In India, the westernmost trading centers were located near the Arabian Sea, but the journey from there to Arabia was extremely long and dangerous, resulting in most trading companies not even attempting it. That issue would eventually be solved with the Silk Road, but that's a topic for another video. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to support the channel, check the link in the description. Also, I have a question for you. What do you think would be the best way to ship goods from Arabia to India? The obvious answer would be by sea, but apparently there were attempts to ship goods across the mountains. So I wonder if there was any other way. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. As always, if you want to learn more about the subject, I'll be providing more resources. And until next time, goodbye.